I'm Les, Monica Hamill, and I am back with my last reading recap video for 2021. So, the last video, I don't know if you hear that, my sister's cleaning the stove. The last video I made, I think I read 6 books, not 100% sure. I think it was about 6 books. I did the same again, so nowhere caught up to the 12 books that I read between January and April, but let's go! I say it's 6 because 2 of the books I did not finish, and I'll let you know why. I am recording this video 2 days after Christmas, so on the 27th. I'm not going to post it until the 31st, so like when you're seeing it or after you're seeing it. So I am currently reading a book, which is The Girls Are Never Gone by Sarah Glenn Marsh. And not that I'm not interested in this book, I very much am. The premise is very interesting. I don't think I will finish it in time to include it in 2021, so I'm just gonna record this with the videos that I have finished so far, and if I happen to finish this one before 2021, I will bring it up in my next video in 2022. So the first book that I read between September and December is The Vampire's Doll by Jacqueline Dollimore. This is the first book in the Heiress and the Vampire series. I got this book from a library sale. My library, I'm pretty sure I've explained this in another video, but my library will do a sale where you bring in like a grocery bag, one of those reusable shopping bags, or a brown paper shopping bag. You can get them at the library too. You fill it up with books that are out of circulation, movies out of circulation, all sorts of stuff, and you just pay $10 for the entire bag. So you can like overflow that bag as long as the bag doesn't break, and just pay $10. So I got this book from one of those sales, and I wanted to read it because I like vampires. They are pretty interesting, from my point of view at least. The premise is this young girl, her name is Parsons. She has an accident when she is very young, and she goes through a surgery that her father approves to turn her into a doll, a living doll. They live in this magical world that takes influence from the earth, from the human world. So the world building was very confusing to me, but Parsons lives as a doll. Growing up, she does have a human friend, but she starts working for a sorcerer who is a good family friend, has her start working with this vampire prisoner, and his name is Dennis, and just chaos ensues from there. I really only read this book all the way through because of the vampire, because of the character of Dennis. He was really the only reason I continued to read it, because I wasn't into the book completely. I didn't understand the world building. I felt it was very, confusing, because they're taking things from Earth, from the human world, and bringing it into their world, so it wasn't a full separation. Also, they mentioned dragons in the book, and dragons are attacking at some other area of this magical world, but never brings it up again. So I wanted to know more about what was happening within this magical world, what's going on, why was Dennis a prisoner? Because I feel like the reasoning they gave in the book was one of them, but I feel like there was more reasonings. Even though this is book 1 of, supposed to be a trilogy? Okay, it doesn't say if it's supposed to be a trilogy. It's part of the Hidden Lands series, so there's also the Telepath and the Sorcerer and the Magical Mafia Chronicles, as different storylines within the same world, the Hidden Lands. But this one ended in a way that I just didn't want to pick up the second one. I felt like it ended almost as if it was a standalone, so I didn't necessarily care about what happened to the characters afterwards. There were also a lot of spelling and grammar errors in this book as I was reading, so when I would hit it, my eyes would just read over that same sentence over and over and over again because of the spelling mistake, and I didn't like it, so it brought me out of my enjoyment. So because of all that, I gave The Vampire's Doll 3 stars. The next book I read was Animal Shelter Portraits, and these were photographs by Mark Ross, and this book is exactly how it sounds. I also got this one from a library sale, and it is just photographs of different animals from shelters that Mark has gone to and visited, and some of them, like this one, Snowflake. I'm gonna cover the picture because of excrement. But it will have like a little paragraph about some of the animals. Some of them there isn't an explanation. There's not just dogs and cats. There's also, see a chicken here. There's some bunnies in here. And just, you know, taking pictures of these animals, showing what they really look like when they're in the shelter instead of the photos that you see on the website. You know, when they look kind of happy, and it's like, adopt me. So, because a lot of times those pictures will be, you know, very happy and uplifting because you want to go get them. These pictures are not. At the end of the book, there are words. There's like little blurbs, letters from shelter volunteers, as well as the manager of a shelter, where they talk about how hard it is to do that job, you know, to volunteer there, because if not all, the majority of the shelters that have photos that are in here, they are kill shelters. I want to find, because Mark does have a picture of a cat in here that he did adopt, because he was taking pictures, and then, aha, here it is. It's Brian the cat. This cat, Mark adopted. He took photos of him, kind of fell in love with him, came back a little later and saw him in a stack of kennels that was going to go get euthanized. And he said, no, stop, don't, I want Brian. So he actually adopted Brian, the, you know, photographer, author of the book. If I was allowed to have more cats in my apartment, I definitely would have run to my shelter after reading this. However, I'm not allowed more animals, and I don't want to get in trouble. I gave this was a very quick read. I read it in an hour, because it's mainly pictures. I gave it 4 stars, just because I felt it was good to see kind of the raw images of animals within a shelter, read those words from volunteers, from a shelter manager, and really think about how, you know, our perception of kill shelters is different from what they actually are. The next book that I read is actually my first DNF for the last 4 months, so between September and December, and that is Sky Without Stars, and this is by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell. Now, this book is a sci-fi retelling remix of Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, and I've never read Les Miserables. I have a copy of it somewhere down there in my haven't read shelves down at the bottom, and I haven't read it yet because the font on that book is so small. But my best friend Ashley, who is in my shelf video with me, she bought that for me in high school because we were both in French class and we had seen the movie together in French class. So I've seen 2 different Les Mis movies. I've seen the one with, what's his name? Jeffrey. I'm gonna look up his name. Jeffrey Rush. So Jeffrey Rush, he's in it. He plays Javert in that movie. It's not a musical version. And then I have seen the musical version with Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman. And I actually have a copy of that movie, the musical one. So I may watch it again. But I was very interested in this because I wanted to see how the world that I knew of, you know, Les Mis, how that translated into a sci-fi version where they've, you know, essentially left Earth. They're on a different planet. And I could tell some of the characters, like the 3 main characters, Chatine, Marcellus, and Alouette, I could tell which characters they were supposed to be from Les Mis. But I also didn't like them. So Chatine, she's supposed to be Eponine. And I like her in, you know, the musical. I love her song, you know, On My Own. I love to sing that song, so I really like it, but I didn't like Chatine's character for the fact that I felt like the authors were just going a little too far with Chatine not showing up as a girl all the time. So I mean, from my cisgender perspective, obviously, I felt like they were trying to hint at Shatine, like, being trans or non-binary because she never felt comfortable being a girl, but, like, never really specified it more as, like, I just don't want to be a girl. She just didn't feel comfortable being perceived as one. So I was really confused on that because literally, I think, if I remember correctly, the only time Eponine isn't a girl in Les Mis is when she like wrapped her chest to like go to the barricade to kind of sneak there. So I just didn't like that in her character. I also just did not like Laurette. I felt she was annoying. I only had 3 chapters that I read of her. I read the first 2 like sections, so I left off on part 3. So I got 31% of the way through the book and just decided no, because with this one, as well as the other book that I DNF'd, I would stop reading and I'd go to work, go to the store, and I wouldn't even think about the book. And thinking about it, coming home and reading it, it felt like a chore and not something I really wanted to do. Whereas other books that I've read, I would think about it when I wasn't reading it and I wanted to get back to it. And I was like, I want more time for books that I will actually enjoy. So I decided to just not finish this one. One thing that I can say is that, which I'm sure almost any, book reader loves, some very good detailed maps in the beginning of the book. I know it was because it was like, this is old France coming to this planet, so it's like another new France almost. But the mix of French words in here, I felt like it was not enough and also too much at the same time. That might just be me being annoying and nitpicky. I just didn't like the mix in of the French language in this book. So the next book that I attempted to read and also DNF'd, or did not finish, was Duskfall by Christopher Husberg. I got this book from one of my friends, Emmy, when she was moving, and just gave me some books. But this one was a little interesting to me. Like Sky Without Stars, there are 3 characters that you kind of follow. There is Winter, Knot, and Cynthia. And like Alouette, I did not like Cynthia, so essentially the 3rd character added, didn't like them. I only got 11% into this book. I barely got in, and I think part of that is just the very beginning, like the prologue part. Winter's father, when they're on a boat, because Winter's father is a fisher, and he literally like makes a comment like, Winter should not be on this boat. I don't care if she's 20 years old. The boat is no place for a woman. And then she turns into, but I've never wanted to stay in this town. Like, I always want to go somewhere else and be something else. So I'm not like other girls, girl. So you're exactly like so many other women in fantasy books that I have read. So basically this book starts off with Winter's father is on his fishing boat and they pull up this man who's like almost frozen to death and essentially thaw him out, bring him to their homeland. He has no memory of where he came from. And a year later, they decide to like do an arranged marriage type thing to this guy they rescue from the ocean, Knot and Winter. And during their wedding, people come in and start a murdering. And all of a sudden, Knot decides that he's just gonna run away and abandon his new wife. And Winter decides to follow him. And I just didn't care. So this is a book that I probably will not try and pick up again. I just didn't care. There was also this weird, well, not weird, but to me it felt half-assed of this kind of racism conversation where the race of, person that Winter is, she's what's the word? Teal'c? They're supposed to be not human, are discriminated against by humans, and were also slaves to humans. Like years ago, they're just no longer slaves, but there's still that, stigma against them. And I just felt it was kind of half-assed and wasn't fully fleshed out. But then again, I DNF'd it at 11%, so maybe it would have gotten better. I just didn't care to find out. The next book that I've read, so the second to last, is The Black Mage. This is a graphic novel, and it is written by Daniel Barnes and illustrated by DJ Kirkland. I found out about this book because I followed the illustrator on TikTok because I liked some of his videos, and then as I was going through my following page, he was like, hey, I've actually helped illustrate a few different graphic novels. He's done this one. I think he's done, I'm going to say it wrong, Agrasuko? Here's me not doing my research. Okay, yeah. Agrasuko. It is this cute little, it's either a cat or a red panda. And there are a few graphic novels. They're Sanrio characters, so they're within the Hello Kitty universe, I'm guessing. This is Sanrio. Okay, they are a red panda. And they're, I think, maybe 2 graphic novels that DJ has illustrated, but this one is more of an original story, or it is an original story. It is about, so the Black Mage follows Tom Token, our main protagonist, who gets a letter of admissions to this very prestigious, famous wizarding school, wizard witchcraft school, that is all white. You know, they've always been all white, and they're doing a new diversity initiative, and they bring Tom in. He and his pet crow Jim, they go, and this girl on the cover, her name is Lindsay. She's the student liaison. And as he's there, he is met by spirits of past Black students, as well as he also meets Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and John Henry, who are spirits. And so as Tom is here, he's, you know, kind of greeted by these spirits of past Black students, and, you know, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and learns the true reason of why he was brought to this school, and to try and, you know, do the best he can to take them down and stop them. There's no redemption for literally any of the characters white characters, except for Lindsay, because at the very beginning, essentially, I think it's during chapter 2, because there's 5 chapters. During chapter 2, she realizes how bad it is and literally apologizes to Tom. She's like, I think she's the exact words, I'm sorry, I didn't realize how terrible my school was until now. So she's the only one that gets a real redemption. Everybody else, they're just like, oh no, our school, no. And it's like, save your tears. Save your tears. I really loved this. Again, I finished this in a day. You know, granted, graphic novel, they are decently easy to go through really quickly. So it made me upset when I finished it because I want another. I don't know if that's going to happen because the way that they end this doesn't necessarily feel like they're going to continue with the story. But if they do, I will be very happy. One thing about this book that I literally noticed, because I just wanted to read, sometimes when I pick up a book, I will read the synopsis again right before I read it. And when I was reading, I noticed that names were, you know, highlighted in yellow. And so when I looked, Tom's last name is Token, as in the token minority. You know, he's the token, you know, minority character in the book. And then he has a pet crow named Jim. And I just thought that was very clever. So because I loved this so much, I loved the commentary, I loved essentially getting called out throughout the book, and, you know, having it be that great kind of commentary, I gave The Black Mage 5 stars. So I highly recommend this book. So the last book that I read between September and December of 2021 is Punching the Air. And this is by Ibi Zaboy and Youssef Salam. And Youssef Salam is actually one of the Exonerated 5, or otherwise known as the Central Park 5. But they have Exonerated 5 here because they were exonerated. This book is based off of Youssef's own, you know, experience. So this story follows a young Black teen, Amal, who is convicted of a crime he did not commit, which the crime was assaulting a white teenager almost to death. So literally throughout the entire book, this white teenager is unconscious in the hospital and can't speak up to what actually happened, and no one's really listening to Amal saying, I didn't do it. But you follow Amal from his trial to while he is in the juvenile detention center, and it is written in poetry style here. So emotional, so gut-wrenching. You follow the struggle to stay himself, the struggle to stay alive while in prison, and trying to make friends while also making sure he is proven innocent, because his first lawyer didn't really do that. In one of the poems, they talk about how one of Amal's art teachers talks about how the white space on a page is part of the drawing. And so in some of the poems, there will be, black space or drawings on it to, here's another, to just add more to the page. It could have gone along with the story that was in that poem. It could have not. This one, there's a little microphone and it's broken because within this one, this poem, Amal is silenced. He can't really say anything. He's in court and his voice is being taken away. And so that's what this broken microphone represents while the court is trying to bring everybody to order. Now, I love watching true crime documentaries. I especially love ones where I can see people get exonerated and, finally proven innocent when they are. I wish there weren't so many of those documentaries, but I like watching those to actually see that there are people out there who will help get them out of those situations. There's not much I can do because I watch these documentaries after the fact, and the best that I can do is retweet and share stories when they pop up on my feed. So I don't really have a lot of push to their actual salvation. Those people who are still incarcerated, who are innocent and haven't been exonerated yet. I don't have really any power to help them besides tweeting. So I'll do that until it comes a time in my life where maybe I do have the power to help them a little better. But this book was almost like reading one of those documentaries. So following Amal, he's, from the very beginning, he's innocent, but however, he's going to be guilty, he gets in jail, and so you're just following him, hoping that everything goes okay. I gave Punching the Air 5 stars. I rushed through this book so quickly, I gobbled it all up, and it took me 2 days to read it just because I was forced to stop at one point to do other adult things. How dare. I was able to sit down and finish the rest of it in one sitting. So 5 stars for this. So those are the 6 books that I read, including the 2 that I did not finish between September and December of 2021. And so with that, since I just don't think I'm going to finish The Girls Are Never Gone before the end of 2021, let's look at my stats for the year. So I don't know how well you can see this, but I am at 22 out of 16 of my reading goal, so I have surpassed my reading goal. So for 2022, I am going to bump it up to 20 books, just because I have made it in myself that if I hit my goal and or go over it, I'm just going to bump it up to, a slightly higher goal the next year. But if I don't hit my goal, I'm just going to keep it the same for the next year instead of feeling bad. Because if we look at my pages goal, which is down here, I had a goal of 8,000 words pages, 8,000 pages that I wanted to read. And so out of all the books that I read, from January to now, I only read 7,260 pages. So next year I'm going to keep the 8,000 pages goal. I had an average rating of 4.27 stars, just because all the books that I rated 2 stars and under, those are DNFs. You can see I have this whole whiteboard set up that I do so I can keep track of what I'm reading. Though I can also keep track of my, how many books, how many pages, my average rating on my Storygraph account. But I like to have a physical version here. You can see I'm getting ready for 2022. So I have some books that I know I want to read next year, so I'm going to pull those out. And then I have an app on my phone that has a wheel, so I'm going to spin that and either choose from 3 different categories of books that I want. So books that I purchased during 2020 and 2021, go through that one. Books that I got from my friend Emmy, like Duskfall, because I do still have some of those in my collection, as well as books that are in my little TBR jar here. This is my guardian unicorn. Thank you so much for watching, my loves. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've read either during these last 4 months or the previous months as well. Let me know if you have any questions on the books I've read, the way that I rate, if you want me to talk about any books, or you have any suggestions of books that I should read. And you can always leave suggestions down in the comments. I'm gonna go try and read some of this before I have to go shopping. Bye!